Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Fire and Ice podcast. Today is Wednesday, October 11th. My name is Chris Crawford. I am joined by my good friend Sara Sanchez. We are going to be talking about some playoff baseball today, and there is a bunch of it. We've got 3 games on the slate. We have the chance to offer some stacks, and we have some chance to offer some starting pitchers. But first, Sara, the reason we have 3 games instead of 4 is because we have a sweep. We have a sweep. The Texas Rangers sweep the Baltimore Orioles in a series that, the first game ended up being 3-2, and the second game got a little closer because of a late homer. But it was pretty much domination for the Rangers in all 3 of these games. I can't say I'm surprised that the Rangers won this series because there's more postseason experience and there's some really good players on Texas. But are you surprised by how lopsided this series was?
I was very much cheering for an Orioles-Phillies World Series, so I'm a little heartbroken this morning. But if you're an Orioles fan, there's a lot to be excited about. This team is certainly coming back, right? Like, I agree with you. There wasn't a ton of experience at this point, but they just got some, right? Like, they just learned some really great lessons about how to deal with pitch selection in the postseason, what types of ways teams are going to attack them. And frankly, I just think they ran into a Rangers team that has been streaky all year, but hit a hot streak at the exact wrong moment for Baltimore.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And, look, this Rangers team, like you said, was up and down all year. They've dealt with some pretty devastating pitching injuries. 3 of their 5 big starters are out. Very good chance that we could see Max Scherzer for the ALDS. I think that's going to be a fascinating story to keep an eye on. The other game was Minnesota and Houston, and this one was not so fun. Minnesota, playing their home game after finally winning a postseason series for the first time since 2002, ending that long playoff winless streak of, I believe, 18 games before their first win over Tampa Bay. They just got shellacked, and it's interesting to see because Christian Javier has not been very good this year, Sara, like up and down to say the least. But he's been so much better on the road, and they got a massively good start from him yesterday.
They really did. Christian Javier has been excellent in the postseason, and he continued to shove. One of the guys who I was keeping an eye on, who I thought got red hot at the end of the season and I knew was going to show up big in the playoffs, was Jose Abreu.
Yeah.
And he is not disappointed. He hit a home run to the second deck yesterday. Absolutely demolished a baseball. And it wasn't that long ago, only a couple of months ago, we were all asking, is Jose Abreu done? Can he not catch up to a fastball anymore? If you remember, he started the season with like that long home runless streak. And we were all worried if Jose Abreu was coming back. And let me tell you, he's back and the Twins are going to have to deal with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, they also get a monster game from Yordan Alvarez, 3 for 5 with a homer and a couple of runs scored. Alex Bregman has a big game. They get a couple hits from the ever so underrated Mauricio Dubon, who's having a nice little start to his playoff career, although he played in the playoffs last year. So continuation of the start of his career. Yordan Alvarez in particular, Sara, he's got to be one of the most underrated superstars in the sport, doesn't he?
Oh, he's a cheat code. Yordan Alvarez is the best, in my opinion, the best hitter in baseball. You watch what that guy does, his plate coverage, how he squares up baseballs, the quickness of his hands. Everything about Yordan Alvarez is fun to watch at the plate.
Yeah, it's so impressive. You cannot go lefty on him. He's almost as good, if not just as good against left-handers. Unfortunately, my Mariners found that out quite quickly with the Robbie Ray homer off of Robbie Ray, which wasn't even that bad of a pitch. He's just a special offensive player. He's had a ton of postseason success. He already has 4 home runs in this series, which is just incredible. This is interesting now too, because I think that Minnesota had the big advantage because of coming home, and you had to have liked Sonny Gray, who was good for most of the year. He just didn't quite have his best command. Got hurt by his defense a little bit, but now I think you got to go advantage Astros for this series. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think that the Astros and another team we're going to talk about in a minute, the Braves, have both sort of like leveled out these series by managing to take one away from some pretty like evenly matched foes. For the Twins, it'll be interesting to see how Carlos Correa responds. He was huge for them in their second game victory, I think it was. And honestly, I think that this Twins team is going to go the way that Carlos Correa goes. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. But yeah, it should be a fun day of baseball.
It should be a really fun day of baseball. I actually like it better when we get 3 games instead of 4 because it means that I've got a better chance to pay attention to all 3 games. You know what I mean? It's tough to pay attention to all 4. Like, fortunately, I work at home and I'll have the games on in the background. I'll have, if I need to, I'll have one game on the TV and I'll have one game on the laptop just because I'm a cliche. But it is nice when you've got like a spread out 3-game thing. It's almost like the NFL where you get your, for us West Coasters, we get our 10 a.m., our 1 p.m., and our 5:15. It's kind of nice having that spread out action, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. For us, I think it's like noon, 4, and 7 or something.
You weirdos in that central time zone, we just we don't know what to do with you. I should be used to it now because almost all of my work stuff has been set over the last couple of years to central time, but I will just never get used to that time zone. We're going to talk about the other games. We're going to talk about some stacks to play, and we're going to talk about some pitchers to use. But first, I'm going to go ahead and promote the Contrarian Edge Optimizer. It is an awesome tool. It has helped us so much in these early portions of these shows. Gives you a chance to create a bunch of lineups with a bunch of different settings. Gives you that chance for that contrarian play, which, look, that's what you're looking for. That is the way you're going to make the big time money, is having that contrarian lineup. There's no guarantees in life, but you got to take risks in order to get the reward. And the Contrarian Edge Optimizer can definitely help you do that. If you're watching on YouTube, right below Sarah's face, you can see the FSL score. I always call it a coupon.
I always go the wrong way. I always
that's why I'm bad at video games, is because I don't get the inverted controls. I totally understand. Or you can go to sportstopia.io to check that out. And please check that out. There's so much good stuff. There's rankings for fantasy football. There's a bunch of NBA stuff that's going to be hitting the shelves. There's, of course, our MLB stuff, which has daily lineups and some also over-under stuff. We're super biased, but we really, really, really appreciate you checking it out. All right, let's talk about some lineup stacks. And of course, there's only the 3 games, so there's only so much that you can do. But Sarah, who's the lineup that you're really liking to play on this fine Wednesday afternoon?
Yeah, I sort of like having only a handful of options. It making your decisions, it limits your decisions down a little bit. And as you were talking about with the optimizer, you want to make sure looking at those play percentages as you're using the contrarian optimizer to see how many people are making the play that you're making. I got to go with the Phillies. I think that they are going to absolutely rake in their home park, and they have a handful of guys who are red hot. This is not generally how I play fantasy sports or daily fantasy sports in the regular season, but in the postseason, it is all about the hot bat. So I'm looking for guys like JT Realmuto, who has a WRC plus of 208 so far in the postseason. He's already got 2 home runs. Nice. Bryce Harper is slashing 333, 529, 583 in the postseason. But here's the crazy thing. Bryce Harper is walking 29.4% of the time in the postseason. That means he is on base to score those runs when the Phillies get hot. And then I really like balancing that out with Bryson Stott, who is a cheaper play, but a guy who has been red hot. He's got a WRC plus of 146 in the postseason so far. He is slashing 357, 375, 571, and he seems to be in the mix of everything that the Phillies are doing. He's already got 7 RBIs.
Yeah, he's a really good player, and he's really made a jump, I think. Defensively, he's been excellent at second base. That's helped him a lot, but he's a much improved offensive player. There's a reason why this guy was considered a top 50 prospect coming into last season. Had his ups and downs, but I think he's made a nice positive step. The other reason why I really like this Philly stack is the Atlanta pitching is a big question mark for this game. We still don't know who's going to be starting this game. It looks like it's going to be AJ Smith-Shawver to be followed by Bryce Elder. It also could be the alternative to have Bryce Elder go. There's also been some talk that even Charlie Morton could be an option for them. Those rumors have been quelled a little bit by beat writers. A couple of guys have said this morning that they would be shocked if Morton pitches in this game, but he is an option, and you just don't know what you're going to get from any of those guys. I think it's fair to say, Sarah, that we're not going to be streaming any of the Atlanta pitchers tonight.
Absolutely not. I mean, we don't know who they are. Who are you streaming, right? Like I go into the optimizer and it's giving me all sorts of Atlanta options. It's just kind of confused. Yeah. I am going to, however, be streaming Aaron Nola, which we'll talk about in a second, because I think that, you all know, I'm a Cubs fan. You can see it behind me. Some ballparks just give you an advantage that is hard to quantify. Citizens Bank is one of those parks. And the Philadelphia Phillies in a 1-1 situation, they really need to win this first game at home. They need to establish that home field advantage. They know who they have going for them. It is Aaron Nola. He's been great for them. And I just think those bats are going to erupt against, as you noted, some really uncertain options for the Braves pitching staff. I mean, the one weakness that this Atlanta team has had all year, they don't have healthy pitching, and so they've got to go with a couple of guys. I mean, we saw it. Darius Vines, you had AJ Smith-Shawver, you had like this rotating cast of characters. Dylan Dodd, everybody remembers the Dylan Dodd days, like this rotating cast of characters through that pitching staff.
Yeah, it's not a good situation. Honestly, Atlanta is so fortunate that this isn't an 0-2 series hole. Like they really did not deserve to win that game. I have to question the managerial decision to remove Jose Alvarado, to be honest with you. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It sounds like you agree with me on that one, Sarah.
100%. I was apoplectic. I was like, I understand lefty righty, and I get split.
Sure.
Jose Alvarado is an elite reliever.
Yes.
Hoffman is not.
Yeah.
So you should never play lefty righty games when you have an elite reliever on the mound who is dealing, and Alvarado was.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. There was no reason to remove him from that game. The lineup that I'm going to be streaming tonight is I'm going to go with the Astros against the Twins. Look, the Astros have one of the best postseason lineups. They have some of the best power hitters, and those power hitters are going to be going up against Joe Ryan, who has been homer prone this year, to say the least. He allowed 3 home runs. Of course, that was in the pitching utopia that is Colorado, but he had given up at least a home run in 3 of his last 4 starts. He also had a 4-homer outing that he had right before he went on the injured list against St. Louis, but he's given up the round trippers all year. He certainly has the stuff to be a successful starter, and at times he's shown the command. It was kind of weird how Joe Ryan's profile has changed a little bit. He was a command over stuff type of guy when he first came over from Tampa Bay in that Nelson Cruz trade. By the way, stop telling me that Tampa Bay doesn't lose trades. Nelson Cruz for Joe Ryan is a big old L for the Tampa Bay Rays. They do happen. Not a lot, but they do happen. But I am going to go with Yordan Alvarez, Alex Bregman. I'm also going to throw Jeremy Pena in there as a cheaper option. I could see him hitting a round tripper. And then Michael Brantley is going to be the 4th guy on that list. I actually think this will be a fairly high-scoring game, Sarah. Not a lot of confidence necessarily in what Houston's going to have in game 4 with Jose Urquidy, with all due respect to him. He did pitch well in his last outing, but I am just not sure that I'm very sure there's going to be a lot of runs scored in this one.
Yeah, it could be a big day for offenses. I mean, I'm just kind of looking around at all of the options out there, and you've got, we'll probably talk about it in a minute, but even that late West Coast game, you've got the Brandon Pfaadt, Lance Lynn matchup. I mean, that screams a bazillion runs too for a Diamondbacks team that's been hot and a Dodgers team that's been hot. It really feels like a bet the over type of day.
Yeah, it does feel like a bet the over type of day, but it's interesting. Looking at our sheet, you do have Pfaadt mentioned. Are you considering using him as a streamer today?
Well, I am, because if you've got a daily stack, then you've got to pair somebody with somebody, right? Like the only pitcher that I have any confidence on in this slate today is Aaron Nola. And let's talk about Aaron Nola for just 1 second, because Aaron Nola has, he's been up and down this season. It's not his best season. However, his last few starts have been pretty good. And one of those includes a September 20th start against the Braves, where he went 6 innings, only gave up 2 earned runs and struck out 8. I think that Aaron Nola has big game energy, and I think that he is going to come today. But he's the only pitcher I have confidence in. You've got to pair him with someone. So in my opinion, if you pair him with that, you're pairing him with the guy who costs the least but has the most upside. Brandon Pfaadt was really good against the Milwaukee Brewers when he got his opportunity. And it's either going to be great or terrible, but you have to roster 2. So I'll roster Brandon Pfaadt along with Aaron Nola.
And look, that's going to be a contrarian play, I think. I don't think a lot of people are going to have him. I think if you're looking at roster percentage, you're probably looking at him probably 6th, but that could be to your advantage. And he did show flashes of brilliance both during the regular season and in that start against the Brewers. Bullpen really helped out there as well. I am going to go, and I don't feel super confident in it, but I'm going to keep picking against the Diamondbacks because sooner or later, Chris Crawford has to be right. I am going to go with Lance Lynn against the Diamondbacks. I actually think he did pitch pretty well down the stretch. He had some clunkers, no question about it. And I think some of that was due to regression to the mean because he was just so fantastic in those first few starts after that trade from Chicago. And he was due for regression in that case too, because he was obviously much better than the ERA he put up. But he had only allowed 2 runs in 3 of the last 4 starts. He always gets you deep into games. And Sara, at some point, like, look, the Diamondbacks are a wonderful story, and it is awesome to see a young team that won 52 games 2 years ago. 52 games. And same for Baltimore. Those were 2 of the best stories. Unfortunately, one team's having a lot more postseason success than the other one. It's an awesome story. I still struggle to believe that this is too real, because this is a team that won 84 games in a balanced schedule in a National League that wasn't great. Is kind of an understatement, and backed into the postseason, got absolutely demolished by the Astros in those 3 games, and was very fortunate that they could back in, because unfortunately your Cubs and the Cincinnati Reds, weren't able to get the job done. I think Lynn pitches well, and I think that the Diamondbacks offense is kind of due for some regression.
I'm going to push back on this Diamondbacks. I think this Diamondbacks team is real. I am getting, okay, and this is all vibes, y'all. This is not like, there's no quantitative analysis here. This is all on vibes.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the Cubs. The Cubs played the Diamondbacks 7 times in the final 2.5 weeks of the season. And that was really where the Diamondbacks started their push.
Yeah.
Torey Lovullo had Dustin Pedroia call in before that Cubs series and talk to his team. And by all accounts, Dustin Pedroia is just like the country's greatest motivational speaker ever at this moment in time, because they took 6 of 7 from a Cubs team that really was in the driver's seat. All they had to do was win half of those games against the Diamondbacks. They probably could have even gone like 3-4 and kept their postseason spot. But instead, they lost 6 of 7. And the Diamondbacks have been on a tear ever since. They made quick work of Milwaukee. They're making quick work of a Dodgers team that has very little pitching at the moment. I mean, we're sitting here talking about Lance Lynn starting a must-win game for the Dodgers. I actually think this Diamondbacks team might be for real. Now, do they run out of steam in the championship series, especially if the Braves manage to best the Phillies? Yes, I think they probably do. But for right now, it's a great story. And frankly, Dustin Pedroia should have like motivational speaker rates. He's clearly excellent at the job.
Yeah, that doesn't shock me. I could definitely see like Pedroia, if he had any desire to be a broadcaster, I think he would be awesome at it, just because he's got so much personality. We stand a short king is what I'll say with Dustin Pedroia as a little guy who could hit the ball an awful long way. He's an interesting Hall of Fame case to me too, by the way, because his counting stats are nowhere close, but at his peak, he was one of the best players in baseball. He won an MVP. He helped Boston win multiple championships. Be curious to see how much love Dustin Pedroia gets when he gets into that eligibility. All right, so let's just pick the games today. So we've got Phillies against Braves, the games at home. We talked about Aaron Nola. Are you picking Philadelphia to win this one, Sara?
I absolutely am. And it's not just because I'm cheering for the Phillies or because Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos both play on this team. I just think that Citizens Bank Park is going to be rocking. I think that the Phillies have an actual pitching strategy. And if you look at these 2 rosters, I did some analysis for this over at the Cubs site I write at, Bleed Cubby Blue, and I noticed that the Phillies have a much better set of pitchers at the moment, not just their starters. They're middle relievers. They've got Matt Strahm. They've got Michael Lorenzen. They have a handful of guys who I feel really comfortable handing the ball to for 3 or 4 innings. The Braves do not. They're trying to decide if AJ Smith-Shawver is going to start today, not if he's coming in middle relief later. And so I think if you're going to best the Braves, you do it in the NLDS, and the Phillies have as good of a shot as anyone.
I totally agree. I think the Phillies take this one. Look, Aaron Nola did not have the most consistent of seasons, but I think he's been pitching much better as of late. And look, there's no way to quantify this. I don't think there's any denying that this is a huge couple of starts for Aaron Nola as a free agent to be. Like, these are massive chances for him to get that big payday. He's probably going to get that big payday anyway, just because of his track record. Somebody's going to give him that 3-year, $90 million deal is what I would imagine, somewhere around that range. But he's got a chance to get it a lot more if he looks the part, I think, down the stretch. By the way, as I'm just kind of replaying the game in my head as I was thinking about game 2, which again, the Phillies absolutely should have won. Was that a great play from Michael Harris, or was that a poor base running decision from Bryce Harper?
It was a great play from Michael Harris. And it was 2 great plays. I don't think Bryce Harper is wrong in that decision at all. I think it's risky for sure. It's risky to get yourself that far away from first base, but the Braves had to make 2 outstanding plays there. One is the catch that Harris makes.
Yeah.
He then throws the ball in, and then Austin Riley actually has to nail the relay throw to first.
Yeah.
They barely got Harper by half a step. So it was unfortunate. It was heartbreaking. It was 2 excellent plays. And I think that anytime your opponent has to make 2 1% plays in order to get the double play, you should take that risk. And unfortunately for Harper, it didn't play out. Remember, that's the tying run. So Harper gets himself to third or scores on a ball that Michael Harris drops. We're talking about extra innings.
100%. And like, look, I think you just have to give credit to Harris and Riley on that play. Like you said, like that was fantastic defensive work. And it saved their season. I mean, look, if that ball drops in, I think if that game goes to extra innings, I think Philadelphia wins and they've got a great chance of going for the sweep tonight. And instead, Atlanta has to be feeling just so grateful that they're in the series, that's still in these 2 games. But I do like Philadelphia to take the win tonight. Astros Twins, we talked about it. We think it's going to be a high scoring game, but who do you think wins this one, Sarah?
I know you're going with the Astros, and I think that's probably the safer play, but I think the Twins are going to win this game. I don't know what it is about this Twins team, or maybe I'm guessing you're going with the Astros based on your stack, but I think that the Twins are going to win this game. I think that the energy at Target Field is really good. I think the team is going to bounce back well. I think Carlos Correa is just going to get kind of ornery. He's already inspired me this postseason to put together my team that thrives on your booze, like all of the players who don't care that you hate them. Bryce Harper is also on that team. Oh, yeah. By the way, these are the dudes who, like, you boo them and they get stronger, and you just stop booing these players. You're not doing them any favors. Like, I think that the Twins are going to come back and make this series really interesting. What about you?
Well, I'm glad you corrected yourself, because I do think the Twins win this game. While I am going to go with the Astros as my stack because it's the safer play than Minnesota, I think Minnesota is going to score enough runs to end up winning this game as well. And I'll tell you this much too, I'm playing with my heart a little bit too, because I think this is really the best chance of a series that we have to get to 5 games. And if we don't get a game 5 after watching, I'm just going to be honest with you, a terrible wild card series. Those games were terrible. They weren't competitive. They were so short, and it made me have 3 days without baseball, and it made me extremely cranky. I need a game 5, so I am going to go with the Twins. But I also think just having the home field advantage and the fact that they looked so good in game 2 and had moments in game 1, not so many in game 3, I think this series is fairly even, and I'll go with the Twins to even it up at 2-2. And then finally, Dodgers against Diamondbacks. Interesting to note, betting odds wise, this is the game that has the highest favorite. Philadelphia is minus 130 today, Minnesota minus 125, and then the Dodgers are minus 145 to win this game. Do you agree with the odds makers?
I don't. I think the Dodgers are going to get swept. I am not inspired by what I've seen by this Dodgers team so far, and I cannot get over the fact that their series rests, or their season rests on Lance Lynn. Like, this is breaking my brain a little bit. And look, I know the Dodgers are a great team. I know they're a great offense, but the rapidity with which Arizona came out in that first game, I really think just stunned them. For them to have to head into Chase Field down 2 against this Diamondbacks team that truly does not seem to understand that they're not supposed to be able to do this to the Dodgers. Like, I don't know if they're too young. I don't know if they're too gritty or what. Like, I don't know if it's a combination of Corbin Carroll doesn't care that you don't think he's not ready for this yet, and Tommy Pham thrives on your booze. This Diamondbacks team, I think, has a really good chance to sweep the Dodgers.
I think they have a good chance, but I'll go with the Dodgers to win this one. I just can't picture the Dodgers getting swept in this series. It's just, I can't wrap the way you can't wrap your head around Lance Lynn winning, starting this game is the same way I can't wrap my head around the 84-78 team sweeping the team that has had so much postseason success. You know, you can talk about that they only have the one World Series win in the truncated campaign, but they've had postseason success. There's no question about that as well. I do think Lynn will do a good enough job. I think Font might struggle a little bit against this Dodgers lineup, if I'm being honest. I think Betts and Freeman get going. I think you can justify having a stack here. I think you can justify stacking any of these lineups, by the way. I do think we're going to see some runs scored, and that will be fun. If we had an NFL red zone for playoff baseball, this would be a really fun little matchup. But I think I like the Dodgers to not even the series, but get back in this series to make it 2-1. And then, Sarah, I'll ask you this just because we've got a little bit of time. Who is your World Series winner? Who is your American League Championship Series winner? Because we will probably have a better idea of what those series are than the National League.
Is this like who I want to be there, or like who I really think is going to be?
You can do whatever the heck you want. It's your show.
All right. I want the Rangers in that game, but this is because I have a soft spot for underdogs and teams that haven't been there in a hot minute. And my head tells me the Astros are going to figure out a way to do this again because they're the Astros. And if you watched Alec Bregman's post game yesterday, they're just clinical. It's almost like they have no feelings and they're just built to win.
Yeah.
And I have to cheer against that happening. So I'm going to go with the Rangers for right now, but my head says it's the Astros.
I think my head says the Astros as well, just because look, it's the safest play. Like they've been in like the ALCS something like 7 straight seasons, something ridiculous number like that, which is absolutely insane. It's almost Andy Reid-esque how much they've reached these championship series. And then of course they get the World Series win for Dusty last year. But I'm going with the heart and saying the Rangers as well. And in part of it, I just want the Rangers to be rewarded for trying, for going out and signing Corey Seager, for signing Marcus Semien, for trading for Max Scherzer, for signing Jacob deGrom, for going to get John Gray. Man, they deserve good things. They deserve cutting that rehab. I'm a prospect guy. I get the value of a rebuild, but I also really appreciate teams that go out and try to win. And nobody has done it, in my opinion, more than the Rangers over this last couple of off seasons. That's going to do it for Fantasy Fire and Ice today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. You can follow me on whatever Elon's calling this website at Crawford_MILB. Sarah can be found at BCB_Sarah. No H, just at BCB Sarah. Thanks so much, and we will see you guys next time.